Move, kitty. Oh, there we go. See, I think we've been live. I think it's just got a delay on. Hey, Ricky and I are obviously still working to figure this out. We have an encoding software that we have to use, and we're running a couple minutes late because apparently that had to update. And then I couldn't figure out how to see what was actually going on the camera. But I think we're good. And look, we only have one screen this time instead of two. Ricky fixed that for me too. All right. So I had several questions that came in this past week, and I'm going to go through those. A couple of them, you may have to go and find another video, especially the one, I got a bunch of questions about turducken. I think people are already gearing up for Thanksgiving, which is my favorite day of the year. Yay, Thanksgiving. And somebody asked me, let's see, 01 Artist asked me how to debone the turkey, the chicken, and the duck that goes into making a turducken. And a few years ago, I did a whole slew of videos on every aspect of turducken that you can imagine. I showed you how to debone the duck and debone the turkey, and to make the sausage and cornbread stuffing to go in the middle, and how to assemble the whole thing, and how to truss it up. So all of those, I gotta say, it's a labor of love, but it is one of the most fabulous things you will ever put on the table, and it is so incredibly delicious. Well worth the time and effort, in my humble opinion. So go find those videos, because I walk you through how to do all the deboning that's required to put that whole thing together. And I'm certainly going to be doing one again this year. Might do some video on that for you. But it's wonderful, and turducken is just completely fabulous. You'll love it. All right, Linda Josie, and if I've mispronounced your name, I apologize. She asked me about brining beans. Okay. So for years and years and years, we've all been taught that to do like pinto beans or black beans or something, that we need to soak them overnight, or alternately, there is a quick soak method where you can put the beans in water, cover them with water, bring it up to a boil, turn it off, and let that sit for an hour. And I did that for years, and it was wonderful. But about, I don't know, a few years ago, I discovered brining beans. So what you want to do is put the beans, pintos, what all do we do that way? I do navy beans, I do black beans, any of the ones that require an extended cooking period. I put those in water to cover by about 2 inches, and I put in a good ½ cup of kosher salt. You would use less salt if you do the regular table salt. So I would say a ¼ cup. But anyway, ½ cup of kosher salt. Bring that up to a boil, turn it off, and then let it sit for about an hour. You're going to come back, you're going to drain off the salt water, toss the salt water, put fresh water in, and then proceed to cook like you would normally. And what you end up with are some of the most flavorful, tender, and creamy beans that you've ever had. They tend not to break, so if you've had a problem with having the beans break, they tend not to break. They're just delicious. So season them up the way you would any other, but skip the salt, because the salt's already gotten on the interior of the bean. So brining beans is one of my favorite. Matter of fact, I like to brine. I brine all the time. Pork chops, chicken, turkey, poultry of any kind. And a brine is basically just a saltwater solution. And to that saltwater solution, you can add all kinds of other flavors if you want to. So you can use, garlic, you can use onion, you can use any of the savory herbs, so thyme and rosemary and parsley, lemon zest is awesome, and you throw all those things together and soak whatever you're cooking for anywhere from ½ an hour to overnight if you're doing something big. So brining is wonderful. You get juicy, tender roasts and pork chops and all kinds of stuff. Ricky, can you answer my person? Somebody said hello. Hi. We're still Ricky and I are still figuring this out, so we are far from expert on getting all the moving parts together at one time, but we're working on it. Okay, so that's brining and brining beans. Linda, I hope that helps. So yes, it is a saltwater soak, but you do want to bring it up to a boil. And if you want to, you can go ahead and add garlic or red pepper flake or some onion to that brining process. Just toss it all when you change out the water. Let's see, somebody actually at the grocery store stopped me after one of the live shows I did, I think I was in Kingsport, and asked me how to make quinoa taste good. So quinoa, of course, is delicious and healthy and all those wonderful things. It's on the list of what everybody's telling you you're supposed to eat. But the problem is it can have absolutely no flavor, and it's difficult to get flavor into it after it's cooked. So you really want to address this before you cook it. I like to do quinoa in the rice cooker. I think that's the easiest way, and it's just a 2-to-1 ratio. So you measure out the liquid and you measure out the quinoa and hit on, and you're good to go. Now, at the beginning, when you're just setting it up, there's a couple of things that you want to do to make sure that it actually is going to have some flavor. One of the easiest things to do is to use some kind of broth or to use some other kind of flavored liquid. So I use chicken broth a lot. I use vegetable broth. I love to throw a little bit of wine in there. And at this point, you can add all kinds of fresh herbs. I like to throw in fresh parsley to all kinds of stuff. I love fresh thyme. Again, you can use some lemon zest if you want to. And if you really want to up the flavor of the quinoa, take a minute before you throw it in the rice cooker with the liquid, toast it in a little bit of butter, and you're going to have incredible flavor that comes out of that. It's so much better than just the plain bland stuff that's done with just water. You also want to throw in a teaspoon of salt at the beginning because it will not absorb any kind of flavor inside the little grains. It won't absorb it after it's already cooked, so you want to do that at the beginning in the cooking liquid. Quinoa. Yum. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked me on my channel, I have a marinara sauce recipe that I've had up there for several years now, and it's really incredibly simple. It's really olive oil, onion, garlic, celery, bay leaves, a little salt, crushed tomatoes. That's my marinara sauce recipe, and it is one of the most delicious sauces that I've come across ever. And somebody had asked me a question about, where's the peppers, where's the sugar, where's the oregano, the whole laundry list of ingredients. You can certainly add those. You can put those in if you want to. If you're going to put peppers in, then you can put it in when you saute your onions and garlic. I like the simplicity. I like how clean the flavor is. But also, this marinara sauce, I usually make it in giant batches. I'll use the big 110 can. What's that size can? Like a gallon. I'll use the giant cans of tomatoes when I'm doing the marinara sauce. And I'll double, sometimes triple that batch, because that marinara sauce can then become a base of all kinds of stuff. So you can use it with just pasta if you want to, but I also will then turn around and I'll do lasagna, I'll do tortellini, I do a tortellini soup, I'll do stuffed peppers, all kinds of things. And because you've kept the flavors clean and you've kept them simple, you can then build out that sauce however you want to. So anyway, no peppers in my marinara. Sorry, I can add oregano sometimes. I never add sugar. I just don't like what it does to the tomatoes. A lot of times tomatoes can be a bit acid, although over the past few years, I think consistency in manufacturing has eliminated a lot of that. If you do have a batch of tomatoes that are too acidic, I would tend to throw a carrot in there instead of putting table sugar, because I think the carrot adds just a little bit of sweetness. It will mellow it out just a bit. You'll still have the roundness of flavor, but you don't have the sweetness, that one-dimensional, Canned pasta sauces usually have a lot of sugar in them, and I really try to eliminate as much of that as I can. So anyway, that's why I don't have peppers and sugar and oregano in my marinara sauce, although you can certainly add them if you want. The base recipe is still excellent. Just throw it in at the beginning, and don't use sugar. I don't like the sugar. All right. I had a question about salt, iodized versus non-iodized salt. So table salt, you get the blue canister thingy, and it'll say iodized salt. And I think it was about 100 years ago that they began putting iodine in table salt, and it was to prevent the formation of goiters. So people that were developing these, I don't remember the name of the gland, but anyway, they would get goiters. So putting the iodine in table salt pretty much eliminated that. So I don't like the flavor of iodized salt. It does taste a little bit too minerally, but I mean, it's not a deal breaker. If that's what I've got, that's what I'll use. However, in the 100 years or so since they've been doing that, Americans now consume much more meat than we used to, which is a good source of iodine. And we just simply don't need the additional iodine like we used to. So I tend to just skip it. I mainly use kosher salt. That's Ricky's elbow. I mainly use kosher salt. Measure by measure. It's got the same amount of sodium as table salt. I mean, it just does. However, it's got a much bigger flake. It's easier to see. It's got a cleaner taste. I just like to use kosher salt. So that's what I use all the time. So if you're following any of my recipes, I can almost guarantee that unless I say table salt or sea salt or gray salt or something else, all of my salt is going to be kosher salt. And we don't have waiters, so I don't think we need it. But you know, you got to ask your doctor, your dietitian, if you think you might need something like that. Okay, last question I got. I had somebody ask me about pork chops and how to manage pork chops because they always tend to be dry or flavorless. There's a couple things you can do. First of all, if you buy bone-in pork chops, I do a lot of shopping at the giant warehouse stores, so I get a lot of packages, and I know y'all have probably noticed this too. They'll put the pretty pork chops on the top, and then the ones underneath are kind of ugly, and the ones that you really probably wish you hadn't bought. And then sometimes you have those little tenderloin pork chops, the ones that are about, I don't know, about that big, and they don't have bones, and they're very little fat. So over the past few decades, pork has been bred to be very, very lean, and they marketed it for years as the other white meat. Originally, it just wasn't. It was not really a white meat, and so the result of having it become so lean is that we've lost a lot of the flavor. If you use a bone-in pork chop and you have a thicker cut and you have a super hot pan, you can sear the outside of that pork chop and slide your pan in a 350-degree oven to finish it off. That will help a lot. But going back to the brining, that's one of my favorite things to do with pork chops. And at this time of year, do a brine with apple cider and onion and rosemary. And let that brine for a couple of hours. And then take it out of the brine, pat it dry because you want to get a nice crust on the outside and you have to have a dry pork chop. Pat it dry and then sear it. And you're going to find that that's probably going to address all your problems. It's going to taste incredible all the way through. It's going to be super moist and super juicy. Okay, Ricky, how do we do? Ricky hasn't been awake for very long. All right. So if you have any questions, shoot them to me in my messages. You can ask your questions in the comments down below, and I will do my best to get to them when we come back. I think Monday at noon works pretty well for right now, so we're going to stay with this time slot. And shoot me your questions. I'll do my best to get to them. All right. How did I turn this off last time? Was it here? I could do that.